call for unity. Emoji is the message, a call for unity.
For a long, long time, we've been deceived by the illusion. We're called by different names, and this has served to just confuse us. When all is said and done, to be one's our revolution. We never stand alone.
Hotep, I'm Dr. Gloria Lattimore, Peace, host and producer of Omni-U presents the H30 Art of Life show. And the title of this show is Community Empowerment, by any means, period. And I have with me guests who can discuss everything I want to hear about, so I don't have to say much. And I'm real happy to introduce them so they can get started and I can listen. I have Valerie Leonard, who is co-founder of the North Lawndale Alliance. I have Professor Robert Starks, who claims to be retired, but you could hardly tell.
You got it.
The Task Force for Black Political Empowerment. And then I have a write-in candidate for the 2nd Congressional District, Marcus Lewis, who is the reason why I titled this show By Any Means, because Marcus is quick to point out that people think that a write-in candidate's chances are slim, and so I'm going to let him start out by telling us why he is running. First of all, I guess we need to know something about the 2nd Congressional District, and then why you are running for office there as a write-in candidate.
Well, thank you for having me, Ms. Peace. The 2nd Congressional District borders are from 53rd and Cornell over to the lake, down into Roseland, into the south suburbs, and it attaches to Will and Kankakee County. So the length is narrow and long. It is mainly rural, a mixture of urban, and it has former manufacturing base that has now left the district. I am running simply because after 32 plus years of absolute corruption, deceit, and lies, and the district is basically a wasteland. All the companies have left. We're basically left with oversized bed and breakfasts out in the south suburbs, where it's majority black. And in the city, we have a gang violence problem that is absolutely an epidemic. The attached new counties of Will and Kankakee that have been attached because of redistricting in 2011 are mainly farmland. And then we have a situation in Kankakee where we have a black area called Pembroke in Hopkins Park that is absolutely drinking poison water. It is so dire. They are the 3rd worst in cancer clusters in the nation. And it's gotten to the place to where the Republican congressman that was over that's now under Democrat, is absolutely done nothing for them. And the district has no jobs. Education is poor. A 1/3 of the schools that Mayor Manuel had closed are in the 2nd Congressional District. No word from the current office holder. And so I have stepped up because a write-in under the age of technology is very plausible because everybody usually has a smartphone of some sort. I have an app called Vote for Marcus because we have to be savvy to download from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And once downloaded, we can push notifications, have full information of my agenda, of the plans I have for the district in the first 2 years. They are sustainable, and they are something that people will want to reach out for. And with this app, it empowers you to know when it's time to vote, where to go vote, and we can win this simply because we're dealing with intelligent people now. And enormement for people that have been satisfied with or become accustomed with things that are distasteful or substandard. That's the way they've been voting because they haven't been given a real choice. The issue of whether you're a Democrat or Republican must fall to the wayside. Because if your child needs to go to the hospital, we're not going to do home health care when the child has gangrene. And our district has gangrene from the top down. And I'm talking to the people. I'm chasing voters who basically said, I've had enough. that they need an option out of this. I consider myself, Ms. Peace, a crab that came out of the barrel. And I have seen what's available for those that have now left behind. And I have turned around, and through a plan of being a citizen legislator, the job does not encompass only 735 days. I'm going back to rescue and save this district, because the seat must be in our control, not in the control of the top 1% as it is now, because we saw a special election where the outside forces paid $2 million in advertising and blanketed, giving people the psychology that once you see an ad 6 times, that's the person you're going to vote for. That's how the voters were manipulated. And we don't want that anymore, because after the election, it's back to status quo, business as usual. But can I win? Absolutely I can win. If you text and type, you can write my name in. We have a jingle, MARCUSLEWIS for Congress. And you touch that. That is a catchy jingle. That's going to stick with you. The other strategy that we're using, because we have to win the election as well, you'll love my plans and programs. We are handing out by the thousands these yellow armbands that state Marcus Lewis, write it in for U.S. Rep, 2nd District, as a reminder to let them know that there is a real campaign going on, and I am fighting for you and your family, because without the seat of power, we have no power. The people in it don't listen to us. How do I know? Just go back 32 years. We had an incumbent that's now in prison for 17. We had another gentleman who went to prison for 22 months. Then we had another gentleman who was in the seat for 12 years. These were machine candidates. And it's those candidates that did the work for those that put them there. And the voters were inured, lulled into a sleep to vote for them because of this DR thing. But the D and the R are both holding hands outside the glowing of the Klieg lights. And people like myself, yourself, the people on this panel, we are average citizens that deserve better for our families. And I'm here to give it to them. Finally, we have access and an option that we never had before. And what I've done is just put all these factors together, these elements that can be winning, but of course I'm going to vote for myself. I need the general public to participate. And that's where the general public comes in. Download my app. Go to my website. It's one of the best websites going. And I had people that are determined, they see the way out, because the last election was criminal. I was in that election. I received 40,000 votes. These people determined and said, I can't vote for that. And they were on the right side of history, because the incumbent at that time, the next day, plea bargained, or had done so months before. That was very deceitful. And 15 days later, resigned. Cost us $5.2 million for a special election. That was a waste. Now we have a person who's now in the office who hired his chief of staff as her senior advisor. So that's how you keep the status quo. Business as usual. We're going to break that. Corruption, deceit, and lies are going to stop at the water's edge the moment that I'm elected, Congressman-elect, because I want to bring forth the WPA program and reintroduce that. That was a depressionary program that hired 8 million people and put them to work based on what they could do, not based on need. That's why we have the museums. Artisans, our high schools are filled with WPA projects. And we need people to earn a check, because people simply have run out of money. Not all, but the majority are tapped out. And if you have no money in an area or a district, there is no economy. And that's why these businesses don't want to come here, because the people generally don't have money. The citizenry needs their federal government to be active, and that's what I want to play, is an active role, because without the federal government at the aid, almost like a crutch at this point, the people have nowhere else to go. And I want to reinvigorate what the federal government can do, because if we don't try something, we're going to fail. And so my job is, and my mentality is, we're going to try something. We have plenty of plans. I have Gun for Jobs. We want people to put down their guns and bring forth butter. We want companies to come in here and reinvigorate. We have plenty of people that have startups, would love to have startups. They're just looking for resources. I want to bring Tesla, the electric car company, into this district. Elon Musk is looking for, he's the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX.
Can we get back to more of what it is you want to do for the electorate?
Yes, I want to show them there's a way.
Well, I need to go to Bob Starks right now. I want to apologize to you, Valerie, because I know it's usually ladies first. But, you know, the protocol here is I'm the host, you're the guest, and I'm the decider.
All right, Ronald
Reagan. That was so disingenuous.
George Bush.
But I do apologize to you, Valerie. But I'm trying to lay a framework around where I want you to come in, and that's why I'm not coming to you first.
Okay.
All right? Okay. Now, Professor Robert T.Starks, who has been in this thing called politics, particularly political empowerment, which is not just politics. This is, you know, many people will say, well, why should I vote? What am I voting for? I voted for this one, and they made a lot of promises, and they didn't do what they promised. And I voted for the other one, and other people will say, I didn't vote. I didn't see what difference it would make. You know, you got so-and-so in there, and, you know, the district or whatever, the unit is worse off. I say community empowerment by any means. So you try every means.
Absolutely.
Whether or not it has ever worked, whether or not it has worked to your satisfaction, you try every means. So you have been about black political empowerment for many, many years, had the task force, played a major role in the election of our favorite mayor. And so I want you to talk about something about how this thing works for and against us in terms of electoral politics.
Well, first of all, let's define politics,
Very good.
which is one of the things that always irritates me because most people don't define it correctly. Politics is simply a process. It's not an end in itself. And I'm glad that Mr. Lewis talked about it in that way. Politics, as defined by a classic political scientist, is the process whereby a society, regardless of what kind of society it is, decides who gets what, when, and how. And therefore, the politics is a process, not an end, right? The end is power. Empowerment and power. And what do we mean by power? We mean the ability to determine your own fate within your community. And it's community empowerment and not individual empowerment. So I'm glad again that Mr. Lewis talks about that. So that African Americans, unfortunately, we're victims of people who see themselves as being empowered and not the community. And therefore it's me, 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 me. And given the way in which democratic politics operates in Chicago, you, in order to get elected and stay elected, many people believe they have to be attached to the Democratic machine in Illinois and Chicago. And therefore, when they go downstate, they are tied at the hip to the Speaker of the House, Mr. Madigan. When they go to Washington as a congressman, they are tied to the hip of Mrs. Pelosi, who's the Speaker of the Congress, the House in Washington. So they don't see themselves as being independent. One of the reasons is it costs a lot of money to run for office. And the speakers in both the State House and in the Congress controls the money. They tell you very clearly, if you don't play ball with us, you won't get elected. So those are some of the encumbrances. But people have to understand that in order to have the freedom and the power that we want, we've got to break out of that box.
Yes.
We got to break out of that box. But I just want to make one point to Mr. Lewis. The gentleman who served before Mel Reynolds was a dear friend of mine, Gus Savage. Gus was elected by the Democratic Party. He was a Democrat, but he was one of the most progressive men we've ever had in the Congress, period. Now, I mean, we could just go down the list. Gloria knew Gus rather well, and we can just count on a number of things that he did that benefited the community. And of course, he benefited himself, but he definitely was a community and a very progressive man. So I'm just happy that Lewis is running, but let me just warn you, Mr. Lewis, when in that special election, we had several forums, and I talked about the fact that over the next 20 years, in your district, the 2nd Congressional District, it has been estimated that something between $50 billion and $100 billion will be spent on development in that district. Because what you're talking about, the Illinois, Ileana, right? You're talking about the airport, right? You're talking about building a city within the city from 87th Street along the lakefront all the way through the steel mill, the former steel mill area, right? You're talking about if the airport comes in, that whole area is going to be redeveloped.
That's the big question. I don't believe it's going to happen.
Why don't you think it will happen?
Because first of all, it needs federal funding. And it does not have that.
Okay.
The Republicans in Congress are not going to give it. Ileana has been dubbed the highway to nowhere.
Of course.
Okay. And there's
it's not the first time we've ever had.
That's correct. That's correct. But
it's a money thing.
What the governor has done is order last November or September, I believe, that the land, 600 acres that they need for the airport to be purchased. But that can't be changed of mind. That mind can be changed. Now the state owns the land. And when you have state owning the land, now that land's been taken off tax rolls.
All right, well, let me just inform you who owned the land. Just think about it. Remember when it was first announced some, 10, 15 years ago? Politicians sitting in the State House and in City Hall went and bought the land.
I understand that.
And now they've turned around and sold it to the state and made a big profit.
But I'm one, because of our subject matter, I'm one that wants to see an industrial park.
Okay,
that's what I want to see in the Moni Peatone area. Because I worked for an airline, and if you go and asphalt and concrete 6, 7, 10 square areas, you have now an area that now can't be used for anything else. Not one airline has said they're going to sign on to the Allnack airport. You have Gary International Airport, 15 minutes away, where the mayor, I forgot her name, was Karen, I forgot her last name, forgive me, but she is now extending the runways. I understand that there may be some issues with the ecosystem, going out, but they're going to fix that. And they're extending it to take in the 787 airlines. Now, they only had one airline going there, and that was Allegheny on Thursday and Sunday. Now, that is closed. Now, they have none.
None.
So now we have a mentality here, build it, and then they will come. Mayor Emanuel told Congressman Jackson at his dinner table back in April of 2012 that I'm going to build 2 runways at O'Hare, and I am not going to support a South suburban airport.
Well, we must explain to the audience that, in fact, the Gary Airport is called the Gary Chicago Airport.
Compact.
It's combined
Yes.
with the Chicago Airport system. So you're right. So if the mayor does not support it, it can't operate. And if he decides to put money into Gary as opposed to the proposed airport in Peatone, it just it knocks out the whole
Remember,
thing.
it does get $3 million in subsidies from the city every year.
Every year.
And
Exactly.
it is a model of, because it's only 20 minutes away from downtown. And so it would be in our best interest to have an agreement with the Indiana and the district that we will help have some employment, and our businesses will be able to get contracts to be able to address the needs of that airport. So we have a shared. But to build an outright unnecessary airport that has no airlines contracted to go there, United, American, the rest of them, Northwest, they're not going there. And so they said we're going to turn it into a cargo airport.
That's exactly what it was
now the
originally intended to be.
But see, Will
cargo.
County wanted to have an economic engine. And this was their idea to do that. It's just that it takes almost a decade or so just to get it up and running before they even put a shovel in the ground. We need jobs now. That's where the WPA really comes into play, because we can have people working right here and now. We're going to put people that are former plumbers, artisans, mathematicians, teachers, reopen these schools that they want to close, that they want to give to people for $1. That is insulting. That's defunding our community. We can't have empty buildings sitting around and then to turn it over to give it to private industry, which is called the charter. I am for public education. Private industry, they can do that. But as far as this congressman, I want to ensure that we get the resources to go directly to where it's supposed to go, and that's to the people. I am only going to take my salary. See, I am cut from a different cloth. I have seen enough corruption. I have seen enough backroom dealing that would serve me a lifetime. The people actually have to have resources, money, and jobs. That's what the president told the people in Appalachia, in Pennsylvania, South Carolina. I promise you jobs, money, and resources to get those votes.
Now, you know, I promised to fight for women's rights.
And I promise to fight for them as well.
And I've got a woman sitting here, and we are both sitting here. We're awestruck because you all know so much about what you're talking about until I almost forgot I was hosting a show. So let me come back to life here.
All right.
Now, Bob, you set it up for me in the way that I knew you would. Who gets what?
When and how. That's what politics
This is where Valerie Leonard comes in the North Lawndale Alliance, because that's exactly what they've been working on, is getting what, the who being North Lawndale, and the what being TIF funds, so that things can be done in North Lawndale that are not currently being addressed. Go ahead, Valerie, and talk about that journey.
Okay, yeah, let me just clarify. The Lawndale Alliance does advocacy, so we don't necessarily control any funding per se. We do advocate for where we believe funds should go. The way we got started, 2007, we had the last TIF in North Lawndale created. In fact, North Lawndale is impacted by 8 TIFs. We just got another TIF that just has a sports field in Douglas Park. But at any rate, every inch of land in North Lawndale is in a TIF. And we were very concerned because they were looking at putting $100 million into a fund, and they didn't have any input from the general public. You know, there was input from nonprofits and a couple foundations, but very little, if any, you know, from the general public. When they had the public meetings, we were very dismayed because of that $100 million, they were going to put like $2.5 million into workforce development, and the vast majority of that money was going to go into, you know, money for retraining ex-offenders. And we don't have a problem with that, but what about people who are actually paying the property taxes? You know, what if they've been in mature manufacturing industries, which was really, you know, if you look at where the employment in North Lawndale is, you know, most of the folks are either in nonprofits, education, or the mature smokestack type industries. And there was nothing in there to retool them to, you know, get prepared for the new manufacturing. We were also concerned that there's more money going into child care than for job development. And then when you looked at where the development dollars were going, they were going for nonprofits to redevelop, and nothing for, mom and pop developers from the community. When we looked at where the contracts were going, by and large, they were for investment bankers, they were for contractors who weren't from the community. And when we spoke with the city, asking them, is there some way we can, determine whether or not anybody from North Lawndale got any jobs? They couldn't produce anything. They couldn't even give us a report by zip code as to who got what job. So needless to say, we were very, very disappointed with that process. But as a result of that advocacy, I understand that they're much more diligent. They were scrambling and asking people who got the money, how many jobs did you create? So they're trying to track those, more closely. And, we had the same issue with some money from HUD. There was money from HUD, 3 rounds of money for the new, for the NSP program, that's Neighborhood Stabilization Program. Under Daley, the city went and applied for HUD funding to help jumpstart communities that were, devastated by a mortgage foreclosure. North Lawndale was one of them. So we were in the top 2 or 3 neighborhoods in terms of mortgage foreclosure. They used our demographics to get this money, all 3 rounds, mind you. And when it came time to actually give the money out to the communities, they only gave us enough to do 6 developments. And when I say developments, I'm talking about 2 or 3 flats in North Lawndale to rehab those. So, that was a big slap in the face. So through our advocacy, we forced them to do a public hearing. And when I say them, City Hall, to do a public hearing to give an accounting for that money to see exactly where it went. And then to add insult to injury, under the Emanuel administration, he basically decided, we're just going to put that kind of money in neighborhoods that, that have the biggest chance of recovery. And look, Lawndale has been trying to recover for over 50 years, and it stands to reason that if we were going to recover on our own, we would have done it. So under Daley, we've not gotten our fair share, and under Emanuel, it's even worse. He's definitely set us up to die on the vine. He's not even trying to create programs that'll jumpstart our community.
Now, Gloria, you lived just west of Lawndale when you were in college, right?
I lived.
And I lived in
I
Lawndale.
talked to her and found out every address I gave her was in Lawndale.
Right. So we remember what Lawndale used to look like, and we look at it now, and I'm glad you pointed out the fact that Lawndale as a community was in the top 5 nationally in terms of foreclosures. And that's terrible. That is absolutely terrible. We need to talk about TIFs.
We need to define TIFs, because
right,
we just acting like everybody knows
but
what
also I
TIFs
want to
are.
ask her, why is, and I've seen you on television, I've read your stuff, why is it so hard to get people to understand that TIF is my money from my tax pocket?
Yes, it is.
Why is it so difficult?
Because people in power treat us
TIF stands for
as if tax increment financing.
Okay.
They take your tax money, put it in a pot for a particular purpose, and then give it back to businessmen.
Who's supposed to do the right thing.
That's a transfer of wealth, right?
Yes, it is.
It's the trickle-down economy.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
In fact, it's worse than that, because they cut it off to where they use your money, but you never get access to it.
Right.
The problem of it is that, as Dr. Starks admirably said, that the political in this town is one that it stifles, stymies, and as she said, not withers on the vine, she said kills it on the vine.
That's right.
The people then go from generation to generation having nothing to show for their labor. That's why I didn't want to besmirch the character of Congressman Savage. He really was a man. I liked him personally.
Absolutely.
The problem of it is he was a Democratic machine candidate.
Yeah, that's true.
That is the issue. So he was controlled. We must control our own destiny. That's the reason for my candidacy, to have self-determination. It is obscene that she should end up receiving enough money for